This is the Literacy Mindset Podcast, where education leaders discuss identifying and removing phonological barriers with Mindplay's CEO, Jeff Pendleton.
Well, thank you for joining us on the Literacy Mindset Podcast. I'm Amy Katschke. I'm guest hosting today, and I have the pleasure of having Keith Pautler on the podcast with us. Keith is the principal of Edmond Memorial High School in Oklahoma. Keith, thanks for joining us on the show today.
Super glad to be here. Appreciate it. On a beautiful Friday afternoon in Oklahoma.
And we already talked that Oklahoma, you get hot and humid. So
it is. As a matter of fact, being inside doing this podcast is the best thing that I can be doing right now in Oklahoma. There's nothing going on outside for sure.
Air conditioning, right?
That's right.
Our gift in the summer. Well, we sure appreciate you taking the time to join us. Let's start, Keith, with just taking them through your educational journey. You have a little bit of a unique place, the teacher you were before you became principal.
Sure.
So take us down that journey.
Sure. I graduated from Ball State University in Muncie, Indiana, with a degree in music education, and certainly did that for a number of years in Indiana. Moved up to Fort Wayne, Indiana, at one point in time in my career, and became the assistant principal at Bishop Luers High School in Fort Wayne, Indiana. And that was my dipping my toe into administration. I was not certified. It was just one of those things that could happen at that time, and learned a little bit about being an administrator, but didn't really learn a lot about, the instructional side of education. Pathways kind of go here and there, and I end up out here in Edmond, Oklahoma. In Edmond, I have been an elementary school principal, a middle school principal, and now I'm a high school principal, of a building that is 2,800 kids, some of which are face-to-face, some of which are a hybrid, and then we have some that are full virtual. So we have a little bit of everybody that attends here. We have a growing population of students who are non-native English speakers, which certainly speaks to the literacy side of what's going on here. And so anyway, we just love being out here in Edmond, which is a great town just outside of Oklahoma City.
Awesome. So I love that you have this unique perspective, elementary, middle school, and high school principal. Speak to a little bit about what that's taught you as you were an administrator at a high school level.
Sure. When I started in elementary, I didn't really know anything about teaching early literacy, early numeracy, like none of it. Having a music background certainly allowed me to, know how to engage kids. I can excite kids and have a good time, but I didn't really know that instructional piece. So being an elementary principal, I got to be a part of what is it like to be at a teacher table? What is it like to really work with kids that are at the very foundational spot in their journey to learn how to read. And interestingly enough, that's not much different than it is at the high school level, especially for those students who are new to the country or who have struggled to learn how to read. Those same techniques from the elementary setting do work in the high school setting. They have to be modified a little bit because, the things that work for elementary kids don't naturally work for high school kids because, you don't want a high school kid to think it's immature or babyish or whatever, but it's still the same technique. Like we're still, working those same types of techniques with our kids as they continue this journey or have a brand new journey of learning English for the first time.
Yeah. Yeah. So, sound reading strategies are going to work whether you're 5 and learning to read or you're 15 and new to the country or you've been a start reader, right?
Yeah. The motivation becomes different. I will say, I think at the high school level, there is some difficulty finding the motivation for students who may not be native English speakers or they're just learning the language because they may not have any exposure to the English language at home. What we find, though, is the immersive environment that they are in a school setting is tremendously wonderful for them to pick up the language, especially conversationally. Where we struggle the most is in the academic sense. And we all know that the last piece of the puzzle, right, the final stage of a student learning English is going to be the academic language, right? So at the high school setting, the difficulty becomes, how do I navigate a more advanced course that requires an elevated academic language if I'm still at a conversational language skill? So we provide an opportunity for those students to get instruction from our EL teachers here. Some of that is direct in an English class where they are in a class. It's not a pull-out setting. They're physically in a class designed to help them with and support them with the English language. And some of it is push in where we have some classroom assistants that go in and help them navigate what their biggest struggles are, which is understanding academically what's happening in the classroom.
So when we were chatting before we started recording, you were speaking to the differences. The reading struggles are the same. The difference is more the tools and the resources may be available in the early education versus high school. You spoke that a little bit, but go in a little bit deeper. How is your team utilizing and finding resources to help these struggling readers or non-native speakers?
Yeah. In the elementary setting, especially in the building that I was at, which was a Title I setting, we had resources and materials coming out of our ears. I mean, there was things everywhere for those students. And at the high school level, this is not a title building, so we don't have that sort of resource. Really, we're relying on the assistance that we receive from our district specialists, right? Either in the content area or with English language specialists to work and coincide with our department chairs, our academic administration, to really develop kind of a pathway, for lack of a better word, for students to not only gain a better understanding of the English language, but to gain a love of reading, or at least an understanding of the importance of reading in their future careers. And I think that's for many of our students, the biggest hurdle. So, the question was, how do we really engage those kids in that reading process, or at least that's part of the question. For us, it's about making sure that the student understands the importance of where reading will be in their life, right? So if I'm going on into a trade, a skill, some sort of a trade for a job, which right now in our area is a growing industry. We have so many students that are entering the career tech industry from our building. And in that career tech setting, as they learn those skills, they have to navigate manuals. They have to navigate instructions for how to repair things, or all of that. So a lot of what our faculty does a great job with is working with students on understanding, hey, this is why this is really important. Don't give up on this piece, right? You're going to need this piece. You don't have to be the best reader in the world, right? I'm not the best reader in the world. I'm a great example of a student who learned to read with a note card underneath each line, scrolling down, was terrified when I was asked to read in church. That was the reader that I am, but you can overcome that and become functional in your job. You just need to get to the level that you need to be able to, function independently in the role that you play as an adult, if that makes sense. And I think, I think that's where our teachers do a really great job, especially our EL teachers. I can't speak highly enough of them. They really captivate those students and fight and struggle to make sure that those students understand. Because a lot of students, when you get to this age, you're 16, 17, 18 years old, if you're still struggling with the English language, there's a tendency to want to give up. And that's not an option, right? Giving up on this is not an option. And that's one of the things that I feel strongly that our teachers do a fantastic job with, is just continuing the grind of making sure that those students are functional with whatever it is that they want to do after they get out of high school.
I love that. It sounds to me like your teachers are helping the kids make the connection between the why, and it doesn't matter what pursuit you're working on. There's some form of foundational level that's kind of drudgery, right? That we don't want to do, we don't want to have to engage in. But it gives the result, you look at a basketball player, right? An NBA player, right? They have to put in a lot of work in drills and things that are not fun. that's fabulous if your team has been able to get those students to that Y level.
It is. And I'll tell you, when you reflect back on when you were a student and, you're sitting at the kitchen table, you had an adult there with you who was drilling you on the spelling words, and it was never that fun grind, right? And now imagine doing that, so your first, second, third, fourth grade, right? Now imagine doing that when you're 16, 17, 18 years old, when your life, your body, your community, like whatever, is telling you that you would rather do anything else than do this right now, right? And so that's finding that why, I think, is extremely important. And whether, by the way, that goes to whether you're somebody who's learning the language, somebody who's struggling with the language, or somebody who already has a mastery of the language but just doesn't enjoy the process of reading, right? That's, I think, finding that why, or finding what captivates and motivates a student, is the most important piece of that puzzle for our teachers. That's one of the things that we really, if you looked at what a common bond of our faculty is, it's, we're going to make sure that you understand the importance of this. We're going to try to captivate you. And then we're going to try to make sure that you can write, at least, functionally, all right, to be a productive member of society. So,
yeah. So, Keith, I think we can help them get to the why, and I love that you do that. Speak to how your team is helping overcome the distraction that the technology world has brought into, especially high school's lives. We've had a couple of podcast guests recently that have spoke to the banning of cell phones in the high school. So what does that look like in your guys' building, and how are you keeping that focus when it is learning time?
The power of presence. This is what I love about our district is that, yes, in Oklahoma, we have a new law going into place this next year that removes technology, cell phones, electronic devices, including earbuds, like all of these things, that removes it from bell to bell, right? First thing in the morning to the end of the day, unless it's school issued or unless you need it as an accommodation or whatever, we don't have that. So in getting together as a district, the rollout for us has been regaining the power of presence, which is not just about the electronic devices. Think about the attendance issues that we have. I learned the hard way in college that you're going to get a better grade in a class if you just show up, right? It's the power of presence.
Yes.
It's going to be better for you. And so for us, navigating that will be a bit of a trick. Now, this is a first year rollout for us. So we don't have kids in the classroom yet as of, today, but we will in about 2.5 weeks. So there will be a little bit of a culture shock for students who have not been in an educational environment their entire educational career, where open access to digital devices wasn't a part of their everyday thing. But when you reflect back on the meetings that we've had with teachers, and we've had some advisory meetings within our faculty, if we can make this work, if we can make this happen, like the power of a kid being in the moment is just absolutely crucial. The distractions that they feel and see, and the emotions that they deal with because of those distractions, have been a barrier to students' educational careers. Whether you're the highest performing kid or the lowest performing kid, you have been distracted by media of some sort. So the power of being in the real moment, or the power of that presence, is what we're really looking forward to this next year. We'll see how it goes. Maybe we'll talk again in a year or so and say, well, that didn't work, or we'll say that was the greatest thing that ever happened. We're going to find out, though, in the next few weeks.
Well, guests on the podcast that have done this last year are saying that the general consensus is positive. So it'll be interesting to see how your building responds.
The first few weeks, we recognize the fact that there's going to be a little bit of a detox here, right? Sure. So as we put a book in front of you, instead of your phone in front of you, that's going to be a major switch. And it's not just for the kids. This is also a switch for the adults as well. So as we're all trying to navigate an era where we're tied to this and all the things that are around us. So
yes, absolutely. Okay, so we just spoke of some challenges of technology, but Literacy Mindset is hosted by an ed tech company. So speak to us about the good things that are going on where technology is concerned and how you guys are utilizing technology in a positive way.
Sure. So for us, one of the big implementations we've had in the last, 3-4 years, has been the ability for all of our students from the highest performing to those that need the most supports, to be able to have items read to them, in all of their, courses, in all of their textbooks or whatever. They all have that ability now. We also utilize a lot of, AI to help navigate the reading level of a particular student. I mean, as we all know, within a class, you've got about, if you've got 30 kids, you've got at least 10 different reading levels in there.
Right.
And especially in those advanced courses. And so to be able to utilize AI properly in a way that you can now take this, extrapolate what the real meaning of this is, help me understand, help me find a readability level that meets my needs, or meets this student's needs, is a way that we're utilizing technology kind of moving forward in the mid 2020s, right? Like, so as we try to navigate what technology will work with us the best, that's what's really captivating us. Now, we are implementing as a district this next year, some availability for us to do more screenings at the high school level so that we can get a better understanding. Our kids are coming from elementary and middle school with folders full of data, right? But what we haven't done a good job with is then taking that football and moving it downfield. So we're going to really implement the screening process here at the high school level. We're going to start it with this freshman class next year and move it up, and then run some targeted intervention on students that are needing additional supports, whether it's in math or in English, like in those two areas of what we're going to target on. So that'll be a new implementation for us at the high school level. Certainly something that our middle school and elementary friends have been doing for quite some time. But it's important for that growth to still be there. Just naturally putting a book in front of a kid's hands is great. And it's exposure to, different words and different language and meaning and understanding, comprehension, all of those things. But if I'm not exactly quite where I'm supposed to be, we have to do better to make sure that we are, providing that implementation, just providing that resource for students to be able to grow in their skills.
Yeah. An extension of that thought there, you can put a book in their hands, but if they don't have the foundational skills, how are they going to be successful, like you say, and how are we going to see that growth? So you spoke about the non-native speakers, but this implementation, is this going to be kind of looking for those gaps, or speak to what you see as far as foundational gaps?
So really for us, I think my cardiac data, like I don't have the true data in front of me. My cardiac data will say that we're going to find that there are some pretty significant gaps at that freshman level. Again, we're targeting and focusing on freshmen. We are going to implement it with our non-native speakers as well. So we're going to do freshmen and non-native speakers. But I think for us in our collaboration time, to be able to sit down and say, okay, universally at this level, like our kids do not understand, and we don't know what that is. Like we could guess now, right? I could make some pretty good guesses, but to have concrete data to say that, look, as a freshman, English department, we have to implement some more of this. The other side of that though is what do our kids really already know? Right? What have they already mastered? And we just keep drilling it anyway. And I think that, if we take all the data that we have across this year, utilize it appropriately and then really target what the kids need versus what we either feel they need or what we want for them to need or whatever. I think we'll find that we'll be able to make more progress with our classes universally, right? So the marker of that growth and that gain will be the ACT scores, and then benchmark testing. And so we'll see, within the first 9 weeks or so, whether or not some targeted intervention is going to make, or certainly by the holiday time, we'll see whether or not targeted intervention is making a difference with our kids.
Yeah. Okay. So if your cardiac data is right, and there is a number of gaps, which nationwide our partners show us that that is true. So I think your heart's speaking the right thing there. Then speak to the challenges of providing targeted intervention at a high school level, because at the high school, we're still got content and we've still got these classes and students want to take electives. So what will that look like for your guys' team?
Yeah, for us, the great part of this is in starting with our freshman class, our freshman English department here is the most collaborative group I've ever worked with. It's almost weird how much they collaborate, which is great. And so for them, I envision, right, us being able to give these screeners, and then, with the 5 teachers that we have, being able to separate out kids. So no longer would I be locked into, this is my teacher all the time, and this is the room that I go to. It's more, hey, today we're going to be splitting up by skill and concept, and you're going to go to the room that's targeted for what you need, right? Versus just continuing to, force feed them material that they may not need, which means that you're going to have, rooms where a teacher can actually focus on one concept, or skill or standard, without having to differentiate for 5 different ones at one time. So you'll have the group that's needing to go a little farther. You'll have the group that needs really targeted intervention on comprehension, because let's not kid ourselves, that's going to be a biggie, right? You'll have some that fluency is still an issue. So we're going to have to take those bits and pieces and as a faculty, make that work. Now, this is going to be outside of the comfort zone, again, for a high school teacher who naturally doesn't. I mean, that's not necessarily why I got into education. I may have gotten into education because I loved specific literature. And because I love specific literature, I teach at the high school level, right? If I really was in love with teaching kids to read, that's every elementary teacher, in the country, is they have this love of reading and teaching kids to read and the wonder that goes behind that. So we'll have to kind of borrow, beg, and steal from those reading specialists that we may have in the district to see, okay, we've identified that this is the major issue. We don't have any resources for that issue, or we've never taught that here before. Like if I'm an English teacher and I've been teaching for 15 years and I've been teaching this, the same 10 books for 15 years, I've really got down how to teach those books, but I may not have the knowledge set to talk about how to really teach comprehension. And which is, by the way, the comprehension is the hardest of the ones to teach, in my opinion, right? And so we'll have to borrow from those that is their skill set. Fortunately, our district has those resources, and people are really willing to reach out and help us with this, because it's for the gain of the kid, for sure.
So you'll have that plan to then get your freshman teachers the access to those tools that they're going to need to provide that targeted intervention.
Yes. Now, the best plans get thrown out of the window, 2 seconds after school. Like we've all been in the school. Like, so that's the intention as of the end of July, beginning of August of 2025. And it sounds really good on paper. I think implementation will be difficult, but if we fall back on all the techniques that we have of collaboration, of reacting to data appropriately versus looking at it like it's some sort of a data autopsy, I feel like that will be important for us to just fall back on our training and really dig in, identify those problems, and then seek out those areas that we can, get help from to help kids learn how to read.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's obvious that Edmond Memorial is being thoughtful about literacy and not just sticking with status quo, but being willing to pivot and meet your students where they are. And I think that's really important. Well, it's been such a pleasure having you on the show. I always end with my final question is, if you had that crystal ball 5 years from now, speak to what are you most worried about, or what are you most excited about? You can take it in the positive or the negative direction.
Sure. I think for me right now, that the AI element is both of those things. I'm the most excited about it, and I'm the most hesitant about it. Our teachers right now, we've had some individuals come in and do some presentation to us about utilizing it in a classroom setting and becoming good stewards of that and what that looks like. But we haven't conquered the how do we combat or how do we educate kids on the appropriate use of AI, right? And so the challenge there in the next 5 years will be, we will reach a threshold where this is ridiculous and, students are just giving us a bunch of stuff that they did on AI. We'll reach that point. Unless we really get forward thinking and try to navigate it, put in some structure, procedure, all the things that kids desire to learn how to use it effectively, right? Because in all of our job settings that we have in the real world, right, we're utilizing AI right now to help us navigate difficult emails, to help figure out instructions from this manual, like whatever it is, we're utilizing AI. So we're going to have to make sure that we're working with kids on how to appropriately do that.
I love it. Yeah. I mean, you think just like the internet, right? We had to teach them how to use that responsibly. Now we're going to teach them this new feature to use responsibly as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, Keith, thank you so much for joining us. Edmond Memorial High School has some amazing things going on, and I believe you brought out some powerful insights to help educators. I wish you all the best for your coming school year.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate being here.
If you enjoyed this episode, we'd love to hear from you. Learn how we help students by identifying and removing phonological barriers at mindplay.com.